Hello friends and welcome to CareersTalk. Today we are going to discuss most asked business analyst interview questions shared by our WhatsApp group members. Friends, my name is Sunil Sharma. I'm an agile consultant based in Netherlands, and on this channel we invite industry experts to share their valuable experience and insight with all of us. Friends, before we get started, if you're new to our channel, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our family of CareersTalk. And friends, at the end of the session, don't forget to give us a like and leave a comment to let us know what you thought about this session. Your support means a lot to us and help us to be motivated. So without further ado, let's get started. So today we have a Kanha Srivastava with us, who has more than 10 plus years of total IT experience. He plays many roles, including business analyst, product manager, program manager, and currently he working with Salesforce. So welcome Kanha, and thank you for giving your time today. Kanha, over to you.
Thank you, Sunand. I was really excited and thrilled to have this opportunity and leveraging this platform to voice out my thoughts, my experience. I hope that would be beneficial for the audience. So starting with my quick introduction, I've been working in IT, like you told, from past 10 years, 10 to 11 years of experience. Currently, I'm working with Salesforce as a program manager. Although I started my career as a system administrator, a technical guy, and then I thought of changing my role to business analyst and be into business analyst role for a good number of years. Then moved to product management and now working as a program manager for Salesforce, like I told. Back to you, Sunil.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so if you allow, shall we start?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the very first question is, as a business analyst, how does your role fits into the agile framework? Like, why is a business analyst is required, necessary in agile teams, apart from the product owner and the scrum master? Yeah, Gana, over to you.
Good question. As you know, many organizations have already thrived towards adopting the agile methodology, especially when it comes to product and IT project development, right? And it is very important for one, especially who aspires to become a business analyst in current situation. It's important for them to understand what are the skills they need to encash on, to be relevant in the market, right? Having said that, earlier we used to have a waterfall methodology, so business analyst was very relevant to that methodology, right? However, an agile is coming, it's very important for us to understand what are the skills we need to groom to be a better fit in the organizations. So before I go there, I would like to split the a project, or let's say a product development into two phases. So broadly speaking, the first phase where you work with the stakeholders to gather requirement, design the system layout, and you have all the information required for you to document and simplify for your developer to start execution. And second phase is where I just left, that execution of and development and delivery of that project. So in these two phases, if I speak of any traditional waterfall model and business analysts working into it, you would always be aware that business analysts will have sufficient skills to drive the project from the requirement till the delivery. So there used to be one role and one person responsible for driving the project through both the phases. Whereas the organization has moved into agile, they have basically split the ownership of both the phases to different roles, right? Where product owner is the owner of the requirements. He ensures the product backlog is created, refined, grew, substantiated with the right information, and then prioritize. Correct. It's very similar to what we used to do in waterfall: illustration, requirement gathering, and planning, confirming, conducting illustration techniques. Whereas the phase two has been given to the Scrum Master, the execution part of it, right? Starting from the sprint backlog, daily sprint, and having review meetings, retrospective meeting, and ensuring the timely delivery of the sprint, right? So why I am explaining all of this is just to make sure that if you are a skilled business analyst, you can always adopt into agile because you're master of both these skills already, right? It's just you have to improvise. You'll have to make yourself acquainted with the Scrum ceremonies, Scrum knowledge and framework, and you would be a good fit for either of the role as a business analyst plus product owner, as a business analyst plus Scrum Master. Giving an example, in my previous organization, I was working for Deloitte, and all the, I think just not Deloitte, all the major organization enterprises for better utilization of the role, for efficient cost planning in the project, they will have this expectation with the business analyst to run dual role. For example, a business analyst, I was working as a business analyst plus Scrum Master. So I was responsible for delivering the documentation, requirement gathering, conducting elicitation, because business analysts master into all of these skills, right? So I always brought additional value to the table when it comes to not only gathering the requirements, also consulting and reciprocating to the customer's needs, right? And that where I outshines the two other existing roles, correct? So my expectations or organization's expectations, or my expectations would be from the business analyst role, if somebody would like to aspire, is that they either going to play a business analyst plus Scrum Master role or business analyst plus product owner role. But I'm not saying this is only with the scenario. There are scenarios where there are complex projects, right? Long running projects where documentation is extensive. You need somebody who works as a subject matter expert as well. So if you're a business analyst with very good domain knowledge and relevant certifications, you always bring additional meat to the table for your stakeholders. So I think this is the two major scenarios where I believe that business analyst is always an add-on value if you have such skills to encash on in the project. To you, Sunand.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
for that detailed answer, Kanha. Okay, let's move on. So, how do you define success in your role as a business analyst? Like, if you can share some of the KPIs or the matrices which you use to evaluate your, impact on the project outcomes as a business analyst.
Right. See, like any other role, the success of business analyst is directly proportional to the success of the project. In fact, I should say it exponentially increases for business analysts, because whereas developers and other roles in the project will have their individual contribution, right? They can be recognized and evaluated against their individual contribution. But that isn't the case with business analysts. For business analysts, your overall success is always judged and evaluated based upon the success of the project you have delivered, because you are the person who is accountable and responsible for driving the project start to end, right? If you are not able to succeed into your role, succeed into getting the project through the line, I don't think that is the primary and essential parameter. Speaking about further, if I decompose those KPIs, we don't have any numerical KPIs, but however, there are certain factors against which I would really evaluate a business analyst. First and foremost is, again, right, timely delivery within the expected quality and with the scope agreed. That too within the budget, right? Triple constraint, which we speak of in project management. That is the first foremost baseline for a business analyst. Because if you are not able to deliver on time or within the quality, definitely there be questions will be arisen, on your capability to drive that project with the expectations initially launched. So, and second I can think of is the documentation, the quality of documentation, and basically deliverables, right? And the minimum cracks you have to let unexpected requirements leak through it, the better a business analyst you are. Again, then communication strategy. The third would be that how effective communicator you are, not just to external stakeholders, but also how well you are able to collaborate within your teams to ensure timely and effective delivery of the project. Then another I can think of is RTM. RTM is basically the precise execution of RTM, requirement traceability metrics. This is a wholesale metrics for a business analyst where one requirement, be it agile or waterfall, right? The important factor is how efficiently you're able to capture that requirement. You're able to maintain the originality of that requirement and able to deliver that with the same quality, because it's just not the forward traceability, it's also the reverse traceability. When in case, let's say in UAT, you have any conflicts between the stakeholders that this wasn't agreed, you'll have to track those bugs and issues back to the original requirement which was captured. So RTM is another one of the key evaluating parameter, right? How precisely, without how many issues you have successfully delivered all those requirement you have captured within the RTM metrics. And adoption is one of the last and an important factor for me. In industry from past 4 or 5 years, it's the business side, so it's just not limited to delivering the project. It's more about ensuring that stakeholders and customer users are able to adopt the product, what you have delivered, because that is the next pipe that will generate the next pipeline for your business, right? So it's not deliver and dust it off. It's more importantly how well you're able to provide the governance manuals, all of the resources, make users equipped enough to start using the application or product or the project you have delivered. So that these are the key parameters I will always evaluate a business analyst against. Back to you, Sunil.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So now this question I think is very common and most asked. Like, if you can share some of the key challenges which you have faced as a business analyst, and the most importantly, how did you overcome those challenges? So if you want to share some of the past challenges from your previous projects, that will be great.
Obviously, I mean, it's a very great question. Reason being, see, every day a business analyst will come across a new challenge, and fortunately, challenges are there in the project management, or let's say project delivery, so our jobs exist,
That's why
right?
we are. That's why we are there.
Exactly. Otherwise, there's a stakeholder who have the requirements. You have developers who can develop that, done and dusted. I don't think you actually need project manager, product owner, scrum master, where all of these basically fit into. So these roles, especially function roles, are there to bridge that gap and help team out of those challenges. So every day in day out we have challenges, but I would really highlight the top three which any business analyst would agree. One of them, and the first is ambiguity, that too with assumption. It's a deadly combination, right? So when I say ambiguity, definitely that's a lack of clarity in a requirement. We don't understand what is the boundary, what is in scope for that requirement. And wherever you have that gray area, if as a business analyst or the scrum team, you happen to start assuming that, okay, this should be the obvious requirement, right? There you will start churning out the project deviations that result in the creeps. So I strongly feel this is the most critical challenges: ambiguity and assumptions. Because put ambiguity in requirement, you get it amplified at every stage, because you as a business analyst did not understand the requirement properly. You'll end up documenting it incorrectly. Your developer team will develop something else. Your testing team does not have any right scope, against which is to be evaluated those requirements or tested those requirements. And you'll end up delivering something else during the UAT phase, and will result in a lot of conflicts and dissatisfaction, right? So this is really important. And put the same thing, the ambiguity between you put ambiguity in the stakeholders. You don't know who are the right stakeholders to reach out to from business side, right? Whom you need to consult, who need to inform, who need to make sure they are updated, right? Otherwise, if you don't do that, you have ambiguity as a business analyst. You're not aware of those information. You will not able to deliver the right set of information to the right set of people at the right set at right time. So that will result in escalations. Despite your team would deliver their best, you will get escalations because the right set of stakeholders are not aware of it. And same with internal stakeholder. Let's say if you're ambiguous that what are the right set of skilled stakeholders you have, you don't know your internal development team well, you don't know who are your horses to help you out in tough times or challenging times, whom to reach out to for what issues, right? So it's ambiguity is the biggest challenge in any of the areas of business analyst knowledge areas. Generally, I want to refer to ambiguity and assumption are the killers of the project. So that's the first challenge, and how I want to make sure that I cope up with challenge, or at least have some strategy to mitigate, is that it starts down with very strong requirement elicitation techniques, your communication and collaboration techniques internally and externally. So in documentation, make sure the right set of documentations are in place, and with you should be aware what each document should contain, should be leak proof. Second thing, after gathering the requirements, you should always analyze that I'm not expected to build a ship to the moon, right? There's something within feasibility. Analyze those requirements, communicate it back to the right stakeholder. Hey, this is what we have discussed, and this is I hope we mutually agree. Each and every requirement, a single MOM email would help you save a lot of conflicts in future. Arises when you are in UAT phase. So and also validate your results each and every time iteratively. Results means your documentations, your UML diagrams, your matrices if you're preparing as such. So these are the few top of the chart items which I suggest and recommend new business analysts to keep on the charter whenever they are starting with a project. The second challenges, I'm just done with the first challenge. The second challenge is, and it's one of my favorite one, is that getting things done without having direct influence and power. As a business analyst, most often than not, we are somebody, we are an individual contributor in the team. We don't directly have teams to report to us. But though we are the one who needs to get things done with their help, right? And just not internal stakeholders or developer, even with the business stakeholders in the customer side, you will have certain people who you expect to deliver something, right? Can be documentation, can be some relevant information, can be some testing results. All of those information you continuously need from these stakeholders. So without having direct influence, how can you make sure that they are able to work for you? So for me, how generally I tackle is, one of the important factor is you should be able to map individual success, their role success, with the success of the project. Again, not only developers or testers, the internal team, even the customers, everybody should have enough meat for themselves in the table, so that they themselves take the initiative and come and deliver, right? So you should be able to highlight the importance of their deliveries and their work, and at each time it should be iterative, right? Especially what I do, let's say if I have to get something urgently delivered by a developer, instead of exercising the authority that, hey, I want this by end of this week, or want this by tomorrow, end of the day today, I really would sit and explain him the importance of his delivery, so that he feels affiliated. And that affiliation is a great power to use. So when people feel affiliated, they will definitely put their best to the expectations they have from them. So that is one of the trick. Another trick, I always have reward and recognition. As a business analyst, I may not have direct access to reward them monetary rewards, but I can always appreciate them. Trust me, in IT, everybody loves appreciation, right? Be it customer side, respective of roles and titles. One thing we often neglect is appreciating stakeholders, not just internal stakeholders. You keep appreciating your developer testers, right? It really helped them boost their enthusiasm towards the project, but also the customer side stakeholders. Let's say if you happen to interact with some customers and some customer POC, and he's providing the information, I don't think many practice of sending an appreciation note to them. Hey, it was great interacting. Your information you have provided really unblock the success, or let's say progress of the momentum of the project, and loop their managers. uh, that really works. That's my personal experience. You can really change the interaction style and the way they react to you and respond to you with the strategy. So these are the few strategies generally I play and I exercise to make sure that I'm able to get things done without having direct power to them. So that was a second challenge, able to get things done without having direct authority. The third is, as a business analyst, you always be a front facing. When I say front facing, you are the one who will get the credit. Once you'll get the credit, you'll have to split it between the team and across the team, I should say. Whereas if something goes wrong, doesn't go as planned, you are the one who face the wrath of the customer. And unfortunately, you cannot share those lame excuses. Let's say if your developer happened to screw up things, you cannot simply say to the customer that, hey, my developer did not work, or a team wasn't skilled enough, or the technology was new to them. All excuses you cannot do. You'll have to face that sentiments from the customer. So there, it's very challenging for you to be in that position where you are the front facing, and that takes a lot of sacrifices, always a lot of strength to stay calm and composed despite all the setbacks you continue to receive throughout the project. So these are the three challenges I can highlight, Sunand. Back to you.
Wonderful, Kana. And I just want to share this to everyone who is watching this session right now, that intentionally Kana has given this elaborated answer because I asked him to elaborate it as much as possible. So the key thing over for you guys, whoever is watching, is that take the notes, take the best things which he mentioned, and then you add on your stuff and then move on, right? So because sometimes we got comments that, okay, is it required that elaborated answer? Mostly I always prefer, and of course the interviewer can always interrupt you in between, but because I'm not the interviewer, so I don't want to interrupt Kana, and the way he elaborated that answer is really great. So wonderful, Kana. I think let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is interesting, and I think it's a little tricky question. Let's say if that's a real interview, right, then might be
Mhm.
the business analyst maybe get off guard. So let's say the question is, if you were asked to work in a new domain as a
Right.
business analyst, so would you be
Right.
comfortable, or how would you approach this situation? So let's say if you're from BFSI and suddenly we're going to put you into, let's say,
Right.
some retail or something else, right? Logistics. So how you're going to handle this kind of situation? Are you comfortable, or we are going to work on this kind of projects? So yeah, that's an interesting one for you, Kana.
Indeed tricky. In last 6 7 years, every 2 years, 7.5 years, I've been into new domain. Respect of the roles I have played, but the domain was new. Starting from ERP, CRM, then AI/ML, then again I'm into engineering piece of the work here in the organization. So it's always been a challenging. So definitely there's no straightforward trick or tactics to follow or exercise in such situation. But I can always share my experience, how what I did. First thing I realized that business analyst has to be a quick learner. To many, this is skills comes naturally, but wherever many will have to put efforts, either way, you'll have to be a quick learner. You have to adopt. The second thing, you have to be a good listener. When I say good listener, as especially when I used to get introduced in a new domain, what I do is basically instead of many a times to prove ourselves and to prove our worth and capability, we are haphazardly start delivering our work, requirement documentation, suggestions, or emails or whatever expected. And that naive deliveries basically spoil your reputation for rest of the project. So always try to be a good listener. I try to understand the domain, and I use some good buffer to make sure that I'm learning the domain, and then I have enough confidence. Then only I will start getting into delivering the expected outputs from me. At the same time, I always experience this personally. I learned more from my peers than the books and videos and knowledge. Because when it comes to project implementation and discussing business scenarios, it's very important to have a pragmatic and practical awareness rather than theoretical knowledge. And trust me, watching 10 hours of video would not help you adopt the new domain. So what I used to do, especially uh, business stakeholders from the customer side will not have enough time for you to provide those business the domain knowledge. But I used to take an opportunity as in when I used to connect with one of the functional users from business stakeholders side. Trust me, they are the humblest person you will get to know, because they don't know much beyond their world, but they have mastered what they do. So, for example, a person, I was implementing a ERP software and we happened to integrate the financial systems with ERP. I did not know much about the finance. I used to work with one guy, used to sit in the office and used to do some tally work. I gather all my financial knowledge from him as much as was relevant to the project. That person, he used to deal with journal entries, but he has mastered that skill. Find such people, find such a point of contact from customer side as well, and feel free to connect to them, build some personal connections so that they can feed you enough right information, help you, help you increase your domain knowledge. At the same time, they will help you, to sweep small mistakes under the carpet. Once you're good, you have able to maintain good relationship with them. That was the key trick what I can share. Otherwise, seek opportunity always within the team or external team. What happens whenever you're working in a project within your domain, within your comfort zone, you often get neglected towards any associated or systems which your product is going to integrate. You happen to get those opportunities, but we generally be ignorant because that doesn't come into our desk to deal with. So always, for example, I was working with ERP. As an ERP, I used to work, I happened to work with financial systems, analytics, and reporting. So I made a good use of those integration opportunities to also learn about what is happening in the finance, where the data is going. So always be present, be seeking the opportunity to learn. These are the only ask I have. One last thing is the common sense. Not so common, easy to say, difficult to exercise, but have a common sense. For example, let's say I haven't worked in a payment domain. If somebody asks me to work in a payment domain, I understand from the common sense that it's monetary related. So there would be a lot of security related information as a business analyst I'm supposed to know. There should be some regulation. It's monetary specific. The regulation should be there, and then the data residency part would be there, data retention part would be there, personal information of the customers would be saved. So how that policy would also be there. So I'll use common sense to at least buy some time until I really able to keep my knowledge around that topic. That's my answer, Sunil.
Wonderful, Kana. Um, you also want to highlight any use of different books, or maybe anything else in this, if you want to acquire a knowledge on a domain specific? I think the books also play an important role sometimes.
Absolutely, but books are a proactive measure, not a reactive measure. So books are great if you continuously, let's say you adopted a habit of reading books, then definitely knowledge will help you in future. But let's say if I got new domain today, if I start reading books today, it would be
No, that will be difficult.
too far a distance for me to cover, because I'm not the one who can finish the books of 200 pages in a week before I happen to get in a meeting with a stakeholder. So books are good, definitely, but I would suggest they're concise, capsulated version, which is YouTube video. So then, right, we have information, content, crisp information available. Use that. That would be my advice.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on. Okay. Okay, so from your perspective, what do you think? What is the most critical phase of a project from a business analyst perspective, and of course, why?
All phases are critical. I shouldn't say one phase or two phase should be critical. In fact, the criticality of a phase depends on the specification of the project. Let me give an example. Let's say sometimes requirements are very simple and straightforward and clear. Example, I need a business holder as a business stakeholder or a business or general manager of sales. I want a dashboard which gives me granular level of information related to sales happening in particular city, region, opportunity converted, and all of those details. However, when it comes to execution, that means finding whether the data sets are available, right information is available within the system or not. What is the precision of the data, accuracy of the data, right? And do we have even ensuring that we have all the information getting and sitting in the system somewhere, and then building everything, getting everything together and building a dashboard. In this example, requirement was simple, however, execution was difficult. So as a business analyst, requirement gathering phase might be easy, but when it comes to execution, you might have to get hands and foot with the stakeholders to clarify the requirements. You will get stuck, you will have conflicts, you will have technological issues, correct? And trust issues in the technology as well. Let's say ChatGPT, AI, companies are very enthusiastic towards, but many are still waiting to gain certain trust before they adopt such technology, right? So that is one example. Other example can be requirement can be very complex. They are ambiguous. They don't know how to build a, let's say stakeholder wants to have a website, simple HTML website, but they are not sure what all data they want to get into, or how the layout should be in the website. Then the requirement is ambiguous, whereas solution is quite tested. Website, thousands of websites are there in market. You can blindly believe in the technology. So, but however, there are two phases which are always critical. First is requirement gathering, and second UAT. If I have to identify two most critical in most general cases, requirement gathering serves as a foundation and baseline of the project, because on that basis only development activities will take place. Also, this is like identifying the boundary of the project. Before you ask your team to build a house, you must identify the plot area, correct? And then the prioritization, rest of the things fall in place. So it's very important that you, as a business analyst, you drive through this phase very cautiously, and you exhibit diligence here. Many mission important documents also delivered here, BRD, FRD, UML diagrams, and matrices, communication strategies, all of that. And the second important phase in UAT. Why UAT? Because UAT is a testament of what you have promised to the customer. You would find many stakeholders, they'll be all sleep throughout the project, but UAT they wake up and suddenly say that wasn't fulfilled, correct? And many of us have experienced that. A lot of pushback will happen. A lot of scope creep would be created in UAT only, where user tests is irrespective of the agile or waterfall. And basically differing expectations can result in more challenging situation for a business analyst to deal with. So these are two critical phases, requirement gathering in UAT, Sunand, for me.
Thank
Back
you
to
for
you.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. So now let's assume that you inherit a backlog with many user stories and different
Yeah.
features and epics into that. So how do you refine the backlog to reflect the current project priorities? And maybe if we can share some of the criteria would you like to use to prioritize the items into the product backlog, that will be great.
Okay. I will try to keep this one concise. So as we go along, irrespective of your role in the project, be a developer or product manager, project manager, business analyst, you would relate to that. The original purpose of the project would generally start fading away. The longer the project, the original requirements will start fading away. And that is the biggest challenge and probably origin of why the agile was introduced, right? And the primary reason is that what happens, we tend to get uh, you know influenced as a business analyst or as a project team. We tend to get more influence from the customer stakeholder rather than the objective of the project. For example, if a stakeholder will start making a noise around one of the requirement he always wanted, and in a meeting he starts escalating, that eventually becomes the priority. And nobody would have that stand to validate whether it is actually is mapping back to the original requirement and the purpose of the project or not. So it is very important for a business analyst to understand what is in line with the original project vision. And for that, you should be able to project that vision and understandable version of the KPI throughout the stakeholders community. So what I generally do and what I used to do is, we have many tricks, Moscow, $100, 2020, bubble shot. These are theoretically very, very good to exercise, but when it comes to prioritizing, 50 requirements out of 500, it's very difficult to apply Moscow, or it's very difficult to have 2020 or compare 500 with each other. Correct? I think many would agree. So how you should do as a business analyst for a big project, you first understand what is the vision, what is the objective of the project. Let's say objective is digitalizing a process, plus having an analytics dashboard for leaderships to have a visibility of the processes within their systems, or the operations happening around. Now I would distribute the KPI such as any requirement would fit in the digitalization. Any requirement would enhance the quality of the process. Any requirement which is reduce the operations time. Any requirement which will reduce or provide further insights to the stakeholders. All those buckets I will create, and I'll start mapping requirement to those major buckets. You can call it features or tags, different organization, different terminology. So start tagging those, mapping those requirements against these key KPIs. How this requirement is resulting into and contributing to the core objective. And after you have enough brackets and tags available, within that tags, now you exercise Moscow, because Moscow can be applied with 30-40 requirements, and you have to prioritize 10 requirements. You sit with product owner, identify 10 best requirements within that bucket, and you start delivering and start giving clarity to the developers. To you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay. Next question is on the risk. So let's say if you're into a project and you identify risk related to requirement volatility, or let's say resource constraint, or let's say some technical dependencies. So how would you assess and manage these risks? So that's the question. Maybe some contingency or mitigation plan, or if you want to share. Yeah, because I think these are the most common risks. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I again take a step back, Sunand. Would like to give everybody a clarity, and beyond what is theoretically available, I really want to give people the strategy and approach how you should do in practically in the bigger projects. Correct. So especially speaking of risks, right? One of the questions and prevailing questions would be in the business analyst community. Okay, there's a project. How should I able to list down all the risks in first place before applying Rome, right? So I always used to practice this trick, which is identify. So risks are originated from two areas. First is ambiguity, which we have discussed. Ambiguity where we don't have clarity in the requirements. Second is uncertainty. That means you're not sure some results is going to happen with that precision or not. That is uncertainty. If something will happen or not. That is also one of the factor of the risks. So for example, let's say volatile requirements. Volatile requirements means you lack clarity against those requirements. Those requirements would leave certain amount of risk. Let's say resource constraints. That is again a risk, right? And how that become a risk, because you have an uncertainty whether your team would be able to yield enough to complete the project or not. So risk would always reside either uncertainty or ambiguity. If exercise this two things wherever you see the ambiguity and uncertainty in all the areas of the project, you start identifying and listing them, and those will become your risks. So now you have risks with you. The next step you should do is basically now you have Rome. In Rome, for sake of understanding and mutual understanding, I'm saying resolve, own, accept, mitigation, and there's one more thing: transfer. Resolve means where you basically able to resolve the risk. Accept means you have accepted the risk as is. You can't do anything about it. You own the risk. Definitely, you'll have to own it. Somebody should own the risk to ensure that it is being tracked and monitored. Mitigated is something. How mitigated is different than resolve is. Mitigated means the risk did not occur yet, but it can happen in future, and you have, if occurs, you have mitigation plan in place, where resolve is already taken care of. So that's the key difference. But before I would do Rome, I would also understand this fact: risk always come with a cost. It's not about when the risk will occur that will impact the project cost. Even the resolution and the maintainability of the risk is basically a cost. If you want to resolve a risk, I would have to incur certain cost. Correct? Resource cost, technological cost, can be anything. For example, I have to mitigate a risk. I'll have to put additional security software or something of that sort, and that would take some budget off from my project budget. So before that, I also used to do that. One metric is called probability and impact. What is the probability of that risk to occur, and what is the impact of that risk if happened in or occurred in the project? Higher the probability, higher the impact, those risks I would consider. Otherwise, based upon the tolerance level of my project, I will leave remaining risks as is, and I would rather accept. So your project budget is also basically a major factor which decides which are the risks you are going to consider for resolution, which are the risks you are going to consider as just keep it as is, you don't want to touch them, and which are to be mitigated or something to be transferred. Transferred means you don't want to do it. Your team is not skilled enough to do it. You probably hand it over to somebody else. Insurance is a good asset. Insurance is a good example of risk transfer, where you don't want to take a risk of losing your capital in case of there's asset loss. You have asset insurance. You have transferred the risk to insurance company. So all of these strategies generally I practice when it comes to risk assessment within my project.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kanha, for that. Okay. Now let's talk about BRD and FRD. Though many people believe now that these documents won't exist. But yeah, if you want to share with respect to BRD and FRD, maybe we can take example of any complex software project. So how you gather
Sure.
and document those requirements to clarify and align with the stakeholder expectations. So that's the question. But we also want to add something into this. That's also wonderful.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the myths with BRD has been is that BRD has to be a long, big, documentation should encapsulate all the details of the
Or
project.
sorry, Kanha, I just want to add, I
Yeah.
mean, if I may ask, why we need BRD, FRD if everything is there into the product backlog, or
Yeah,
those are the
absolutely.
part of our product backlog in some way or the other?
See, it's a good question, Suran, because like you told, right, with Agile, we got into more lean
Why I'm asking
implementation.
because there are a lot of confusion. I know the answer, but
Yeah,
then I just want to ask from you because there are a lot of confusion around. People will say that, oh no, we don't need everything is there into our product backlog in user
correct.
stories. But then someone will say, oh no, but then we have the BRD attached into the user stories somewhere down the line.
Then
So
why do we need it? Yeah, yeah. I mean, great question. Uh, I mean, I'll share my perspective. Can be different than yours and many. So one myth was with BRD is that again BRD should be a long document, and hence why do we need an agile? It should be a lean documentation. So I think BRD is always required to resolve two purposes. First is definitely what is the project specification speaks of. I'll give again an example that let's say if it is a banking application, all right, your BRD or you should have some documentation which speaks of data security, compliance, regulatory, and all of that to reflect the governance of your project to the right stakeholder. And trust me, even in today, if you'll speak any business analyst working in payment banking domain, they will say that they haven't gotten away with business requirement documents. The second reason for BRD used to be because BRD also used to be treated, or currently in many projects being treated as a memorandum of understanding, or let's say even for contractual purposes. Especially in agile also we have fixed budget projects. Fixed budget project doesn't mean that you can dynamically change requirement every now and then, right? So in those cases also, if you have a fixed budget, you will want to make sure that you encapsulate all the requirements in a single place and get it signed off. That is also one of the areas where you would need BRD. So I wouldn't say that BRD is no longer required. Definitely creates a lot of confusion because it duplicates the work. If you already have everything in the system, why do you need it? So understand the purposes, what different purposes basically BRD resolute to, uh, and then you understand whether your project need BRD or not. Because sometimes BRD can also be built to give the simple and starting information to create MVP, and post MVP everything will go into agile. Many bidding happens for MVP in current organization, and once bidding is done, the bidding requires a BRD document. MVP is started, so customers are happy, project will come, and then sprint and agile will go through. So that is the BRD purposes. I hope I was able to answer as much as possible within my knowledge area. So speaking of how BRD and FRD I would create, if it comes to especially in agile environment, I would keep it lean. I'll start with very basic. I would not like to make it complicated, unnecessarily. I would start with very simple, business objective, key stakeholders, out scope, in scope, what are the key business requirements, what are the also risks we have. So all those necessary information only I'll capture, and then I will build on top of it if I feel that no, we need more details to be captured for certain sign off, right, or getting more clarity to my stakeholders or my team members. Then only I will have BRD. Otherwise BRD not necessarily should have all the uh, uh, complex table of content, which has been a myth across the business analyst community, that BRD means should be 100 to 100 page document. Please, don't have that assumption in your mind. And speaking of FRD, where BRD is speaking of, shares high level business requirement, FRD we just translate that. So BRD covers what is to be done and what is expected from this project. FRD covers how it is to be done. So let's say if you want a dashboard, okay, a dashboard is basically captured in BRD. But FRD would capture what all process steps, information, data, systems will go in to achieve that outcome. So that becomes BRD. It's very important as a business analyst to understand the objective of both the document before start creating those documents. Decide on the table of content, go lean, and then continue and iteratively keep adding the content. And BRD, so FRD, I capture simple functions requirement, non-functional performance, security. If I'll have any module-wise, feature-wise requirements, I would capture in detail. Definitely attributes of those requirements. For example, if there's a field should be drop down, or free text. So that level of information I capture in FRD. So that's the difference. And I hope I was able to answer the question, Sunil.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Kana.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really don't want to close this session. Honestly, I thoroughly enjoying whatever you are explaining, but I think it's almost 40, 50 minutes for us. So
Oh,
I think we have to take a pause. Let's cover all the remaining questions in our second session with you, of course. So I think with this, I think we can come to end of this session. So thank you, Kana, for sharing your experience, and of course, we look forward to more such sessions from you in the future. And friends, we hope you found this session helpful. And if yes, don't forget to leave a comment and like this video. Show your support, share with your friends on LinkedIn. And if you're new here, please subscribe. Become a part of our CareersTalk family. So see you in the next session. And thank you, Kana, one more time. Kana,
thanks, Sunan. Love being part of Career Talk. Looking
thank,
forward to more conversation.
thank you.
Thank you.